Darkness surrounds you. You feel it in the air, a cold, suffocating presence. The house you call home isn't safe. The people you trust are not what they seem. For years, a snake has slithered inside your family, hiding behind smiles, behind words of love, silently poisoning everything you hold dear. You may have felt it, an unease, a whisper, a shadow watching you from the corner of your eye, but you ignored it because the truth is unbearable. Tonight, everything changes. Archangel Micheal himself speaks. The snake, the one who betrayed your blood, the one who hid behind your trust, has finally been caught. The darkness that haunted you, the lies, the secrets, the manipulations are about to be revealed. Can you feel it? Your heartbeat racing like thunder in your chest? Every breath you take is weighed down by fear. Every sound could be the snake moving, plotting, watching. You cannot hide, you cannot run, because the truth has found you. And when I say their name, the air will crackle with horror, your soul will shiver with dread, and the world you thought you knew will collapse into shadow. Watch closely. Listen carefully. Not everything you see is real. Not everyone you love is who they seem. The snake is among you, and Archangel Micheal, he will show you who it is.
The house is dark. The lights flicker occasionally in the hallways. Family photos line the walls, some slightly tilted, some cracked. A cold wind moves the curtains, brushing against objects in the room as though the house itself were breathing. For years, someone in the family has been hiding harmful intentions. You may have noticed small signs, unusual glances, secretive behavior, moments when someone seems to be watching, or unexplained changes in their routine. The person responsible has been close to you, moving among you every day while hiding their actions behind normal appearances, leaving subtle traces of manipulation and deception in every corner of your life. Normal events carry hidden clues. A family member answers a phone in private, stepping away to whisper words that are never meant to be heard. A drawer that should be locked is slightly open. A laptop screen glows with a message no one is supposed to see. Objects appear to move on their own. Small accidents, cups spilling, doors creaking, lights flickering, happen repeatedly, seemingly ordinary, yet deliberately timed. Each minor anomaly, when observed carefully, reveals a pattern. Each small irregularity points towards someone who has been working to manipulate and betray the trust of the family without drawing attention to themselves. Shadows move along the walls unexpectedly, as though following the observer's every step. A phone screen displays messages that make no sense unless viewed in the context of secrecy and deception. Family members begin to notice inconsistencies. Doors that were locked are unlocked. Items disappear and reappear in places they do not belong. Conversations stop abruptly when someone enters the room. Feelings of unease grow slowly but persistently. Anxiety creeps in with each unexplained occurrence, making even familiar spaces feel uncertain. A low scratching sound comes from inside the walls, almost imperceptible at first, but growing more distinct with time. A hallway, previously empty, suddenly feels occupied, and a glance toward the shadows shows movement that cannot be explained. The air seems heavier, colder, as if the house itself is aware of the presence that has been moving silently among its occupants. Even photographs and familiar objects carry subtle warnings. One family photograph appears altered, shadows making a face seem darker, eyes sharper, intent hidden yet foreboding. Candles flicker violently without wind, casting strange shapes on the walls. Patterns of behavior emerge, small and insidious, revealing deception in minor gestures, repeated phrases, unexplained absences, and hidden communications. The person responsible blends in perfectly with daily life, hiding betrayal behind smiles, behind words, behind the facade of normality. Every action they take leaves a trace for those willing to look closely. Every secret they keep can be uncovered if one pays attention to the patterns in timing, tone, and repetition. As the hours pass, the tension grows. Shadows stretch longer and darker as the night progresses. The family feels a presence they cannot see, yet they sense its influence in every movement, every creak, every whisper of air. Objects that once seemed ordinary now carry meaning: a misplaced chair, a slightly ajar door, a faint mark on a wall. These anomalies are signs of someone observing, calculating, moving strategically among them. Even familiar routines are disrupted in subtle ways, designed to sow doubt, confusion, and fear. The quiet moments are no longer safe. Silence itself feels heavy, suspicious, as though hiding a truth waiting to emerge. Every day's interactions begin to feel like tests. Conversations are parsed for hidden meaning. Smiles are scrutinized for intent. Actions are analyzed for patterns of control, manipulation, or deceit. Anxiety grows as the family becomes increasingly aware that normality is fragile, that safety is an illusion maintained only by ignorance. Yet the person responsible moves deliberately, understanding this perception and using it to their advantage. The longer the truth is ignored, the more it festers in the spaces between awareness and denial. Signs of betrayal accumulate gradually. Subtle manipulations, whispered lies, rearranged items, hidden communications, and fleeting glimpses of movement create a web of evidence that is difficult to confront. Every misstep by the family provides the person responsible with opportunities to deepen confusion and maintain control. Yet the pattern is there for anyone willing to observe carefully, piece by piece, and trace the chain of influence back to its source. Fear, uncertainty, and tension become constant companions, building toward an inevitable revelation. Time stretches as the house grows colder, shadows longer, and the sense of hidden presence intensifies. The family begins to realize that the source of unease has been with them all along, blending into daily life, patient, calculating, hiding in plain sight. Each detail, from the smallest slip to the most obvious anomaly, carries meaning when analyzed in context, revealing patterns of betrayal that have been building for years. By the end of this prolonged period of observation, tension has reached a point where normal life is impossible. Even the most mundane spaces, the kitchen, the living room, the hallways, feel charged with unseen intent. Family members are hyper-aware of each other, yet the person responsible moves through these spaces as if invisible, leaving subtle cues, hidden communications, and traces of manipulation. The accumulation of these signs creates a state of constant vigilance, a heightened awareness of patterns, timing, and behavioral anomalies. The unease is persistent, inescapable, and growing stronger as the night deepens. The environment itself seems to participate in the unfolding tension. Shadows lengthen. Objects shift slightly when unobserved. Faint sounds echo in the background. Even familiar places no longer feel secure. The culmination of these minor yet persistent events prepares the family for the eventual confrontation with the person responsible. Each clue, each observation, each anomaly serves as a building block, slowly revealing the presence of someone who has been hiding in plain sight. Awareness grows incrementally, fear builds steadily, and the realization that betrayal exists within the family becomes unavoidable. The first part of this long sequence establishes the patterns, lays out the evidence, and heightens the psychological tension, setting the stage for the eventual uncovering of the person who has been manipulating and deceiving from within.
The awareness of unusual activity within the house grows. Family members begin to notice patterns in behavior that were previously overlooked. Small inconsistencies, such as doors being unlocked when they should be closed, objects being moved, or items disappearing and reappearing, now take on greater significance. Conversations that were once casual are scrutinized for hidden meaning, and even the smallest gestures, an unusual glance, a sudden hesitation, a whispered word, are examined with heightened attention. Every detail is considered as part of a larger puzzle, each irregularity contributing to the growing understanding that someone within the family has been acting to control, deceive, or harm. Communication becomes cautious. Phone calls are answered in separate rooms, messages are checked repeatedly, and emails or texts are scrutinized for signs of hidden information. Every interaction, no matter how mundane, is examined for patterns of secrecy or manipulation. The family begins to document observations, noting times, dates, and locations of anomalies, creating a detailed record of behaviors that may indicate betrayal. Patterns emerge from this documentation. Certain behaviors repeat consistently. Certain individuals appear more frequently near unexplained events, and certain areas of the house are associated with anomalies more than others. Subtle surveillance begins naturally, without explicit acknowledgement. Family members watch one another more closely, noting movements, checking rooms for signs of hidden activity, and observing the smallest changes in posture, expression, and routine. Objects are examined for fingerprints, minor displacements, or signs of tampering. Documents, letters, or notes that were previously ignored are now analyzed carefully. Patterns in timing, sequence, and repetition are identified, revealing a web of actions designed to obscure intent and manipulate perception. The accumulation of evidence continues steadily. A misplaced object is linked to another unexplained occurrence. A conversation overheard at an unusual time gains significance when cross-referenced with prior incidents. Minor accidents or disturbances are recognized as intentional or at least consequential. Family members begin to connect dots that were invisible before, tracing a trail of actions back to individuals whose behavior now seems suspicious. Each observation strengthens the hypothesis that someone within the household has been acting to control, deceive, or harm. And each new anomaly reinforces the sense of vigilance that has taken root. Behavioral patterns are analyzed in greater detail. Specific routines are noted, such as when certain individuals leave or enter rooms, when they check devices, or when they avoid certain areas. Unexpected interactions are cross-referenced with other incidents, revealing correlations that indicate intentionality. Family members begin to anticipate possible actions by the individual responsible. Precautions are taken to verify statements, monitor movements, and secure important items. Observation becomes more deliberate, and anomalies are investigated immediately. Objects are tracked, devices are checked, and spaces are monitored for signs of hidden activity. This methodical approach gradually constrains the ability of the responsible individual to act undetected, increasing the likelihood that further evidence will reveal the truth. The process of investigation deepens over time. Continuous observation, documentation, and analysis of behavior reveals subtle but consistent patterns of intent and action. Family members recognize correlations between environmental changes and personal behavior, strengthening the understanding of hidden manipulation. Attention to detail, cross-referencing incidents, and analyzing sequences of events allow the family to build a coherent picture of the person acting with deception. Each observation contributes to a growing awareness, and the cumulative effect heightens vigilance, readiness, and expectation of eventual exposure. As the investigation continues, tension within the household rises. Awareness of the presence of deception creates unease and caution. Every interaction carries potential significance, and every action is examined for meaning. Patterns, correlations, and anomalies continue to accumulate, providing an expanding framework for understanding the dynamics of hidden betrayal. The family gradually builds the capacity to anticipate, identify, and respond to actions by the individual responsible, establishing a foundation for eventual confrontation. The careful accumulation of observations and evidence forms a detailed record of behavior and intent. By analyzing timing, sequence, and environmental factors, the family identifies consistent patterns of manipulation, deception, and influence. This systematic investigation exposes the underlying structure of the actions taken by the person responsible and provides clear indicators of their involvement in prior incidents. Gradually, the web of secrecy unravels, revealing the methods, motives, and opportunities that have allowed betrayal to persist within the household. Through continuous observation, documentation, and analysis, the family achieves a growing understanding of the hidden threat. Each small anomaly, every inconsistency, and every unexplained occurrence contributes to the emerging picture. The investigative process, while demanding, provides the insight and clarity necessary to recognize the individual responsible. By tracing patterns of behavior, environmental changes, and interactions, the family begins to build a controvertible case that exposes the manipulation and deception that has been present for so long. This extended period of investigation, marked by attention to detail, vigilance, and careful observation, establishes a foundation for confrontation. The accumulation of knowledge, evidence, and awareness sets the stage for the next phase, where patterns of betrayal will be confronted and the individual responsible will ultimately be revealed. The process demonstrates that careful, systematic observation and documentation are effective in uncovering hidden threats, preparing the family for the eventual resolution of long-standing deception.
As the investigation progresses, the family begins to notice patterns that cannot be ignored. Minor anomalies that were once dismissed are now understood as deliberate actions. Conversations are approached with caution, and interactions are analyzed carefully for inconsistencies, evasions, or hidden meaning. The accumulation of observations and documented incidents has provided enough context to question actions that were previously considered benign. Attention shifts from passive observation to active confrontation, though these confrontations are initially subtle and indirect. Questions are asked with careful phrasing, designed to test responses and observe reactions without revealing the awareness of scrutiny. Responses are analyzed for tone, hesitation, choice of words, and body language. Any sign of discomfort, avoidance, or inconsistency is noted and added to the growing record. Family members begin to notice when explanations do not align with prior observations or when actions contradict stated intentions. Each minor discrepancy reinforces the suspicion that deception exists within the household and that the responsible individual is actively maintaining a facade. Interactions become increasingly tense. Subtle confrontations emerge in ordinary conversations. Requests for clarification, seemingly casual questions about routines, and observations of behavior are all part of a careful strategy to uncover truth. The person responsible responds cautiously, aware that actions are being monitored, yet continues to maintain a controlled appearance. This creates a dynamic of tension and countertension, where every movement and word carries significance. The family begins to recognize that minor reactions, fleeting expressions, or shifts in posture may indicate awareness, guilt, or attempts to conceal information. Attention extends beyond verbal interactions. Physical spaces, objects, and routines are analyzed for evidence of manipulation. Items that are misplaced or rearranged are observed in relation to behavior patterns, and any inconsistencies are recorded. Small incidents, such as doors left open, documents moved, or objects altered, are connected to behavioral observations. Cross-referencing these physical clues with interactions and conversations provides a clearer understanding of intentional actions versus coincidence. Patterns emerge, revealing a web of actions consistent with concealment, manipulation, and deception. As the family confronts inconsistencies, the atmosphere grows tenser. Trust becomes fragile, and interactions are approached with caution. Each minor action by the person responsible is scrutinized for intent. A raised eyebrow, a pause before answering, or a shift in gaze is interpreted as part of the larger pattern of behavior. The household becomes a space of heightened awareness, where ordinary actions are analyzed for significance. This constant scrutiny increases tension for everyone involved and limits the ability of the responsible individual to act undetected. Behavioral testing begins naturally. Family members ask questions, suggest actions, or introduce situations designed to reveal truth or provoke reactions. The responses are carefully observed for accuracy, consistency, and alignment with prior behavior. Discrepancies are noted and compared with the growing body of documented observations. Each test provides additional insight into patterns of manipulation, timing of actions, and responses to scrutiny. Over time, these controlled confrontations reveal more about the intentions and methods of the person responsible, providing clarity that passive observation alone could not achieve. Psychological tension increases as the person responsible becomes aware of scrutiny and attempts to manage appearances. Behaviors intended to mislead or obscure intent are identified through careful comparison with established patterns. Minor lies, evasions, or deflections are cataloged, demonstrating a deliberate strategy to maintain concealment. Each instance contributes to the growing understanding of manipulation techniques, allowing the family to anticipate potential actions and respond accordingly. This strategic awareness gradually limits the ability of the responsible individual to conceal intent and sets the stage for more direct confrontation. Evidence continues to accumulate from both observation and confrontation. Cross-referencing environmental anomalies, behavioral patterns, and responses to questioning highlights inconsistencies that point toward responsibility. Even actions previously considered unrelated gain significance when interpreted in context. The family begins to form a coherent understanding of patterns of manipulation, tracing incidents back to the individual responsible. Each confirmed discrepancy, each observed evasion, and each unexplained incident strengthens the growing case for intentional deception. As confrontations become more frequent, subtle forms of testing escalate. The family introduces scenarios designed to observe reactions, monitor behavior, and verify explanations.
These scenarios may involve checking the location of objects, initiating specific interactions, or creating opportunities for the responsible individual to respond in ways that reveal intent. Responses are recorded and analyzed, with each response compared against prior observations. Patterns of evasion, concealment, or manipulation become clearer as responses are scrutinized over time, revealing the deliberate nature of the deception. The accumulation of information from repeated confrontations provides a framework for understanding the person responsible. Behavioral patterns, environmental observations, and responses to questioning collectively reveal the methods, timing, and intent of manipulative actions. The family becomes increasingly confident in identifying the individual behind inconsistencies, recognizing that deception has persisted through subtlety, patience, and careful control of perception. Each confrontation reinforces the understanding that manipulation has been deliberate and sustained, and that exposure is approaching. Tension within the household intensifies. Awareness of deception, combined with ongoing confrontations and testing, creates an atmosphere of vigilance. Ordinary actions are scrutinized, communication is analyzed, and behavioral responses are interpreted within the context of established patterns. The person responsible is increasingly constrained by observation, reducing opportunities for undetected manipulation. The family prepares for more direct confrontation, armed with a detailed understanding of behaviors, timing, and patterns of deception. Through repeated observation, questioning, and analysis, clarity emerges. The individual responsible for manipulation and concealment is increasingly evident, as accumulated evidence point toward intentional actions and strategies designed to mislead and control. The family gains a comprehensive view of the web of deception, providing a basis for confronting the individual directly and verifying accountability. This phase of investigation establishes both awareness and readiness, ensuring that the eventual exposure is grounded in careful observation and substantiated evidence. By the end of this extended period of first confrontations, subtle questions, behavioral tests, and continuous observation have revealed significant insights. Patterns of deceit, methods of concealment, and indicators of intentional manipulation are now understood in detail. The family is prepared for further escalation, moving from indirect confrontation to direct confrontation and verification. The foundation has been established for revealing the individual responsible and for transitioning to the next stage, where psychological and emotional tension will escalate as exposure becomes imminent.
As the investigation progresses, the psychological dynamics within the household shift. Awareness of deception has reached a level where ordinary interactions are no longer neutral. Each exchange carries potential significance. Family members have developed patterns of observation and response, anticipating behaviors and noting deviations from expected routines. The responsible individual becomes increasingly constrained as every action is scrutinized, every response analyzed, and every minor inconsistency documented. The tension is no longer limited to suspicion. It has begun to influence behavior, movement, and communication within the entire household. The person responsible begins to show subtle signs of stress. Minor mistakes that would have gone unnoticed before now stand out as significant. Hesitations, inconsistencies, and inadvertent revelations gradually emerge. Actions that were previously calculated to conceal intent now produce traceable patterns that reveal awareness, guilt, or uncertainty. The family, through careful observation, begins to notice these changes. Every nervous glance, delayed response, or altered routine contributes to a growing understanding of the individual's psychological state and strategies of concealment. Interactions become a complex interplay of observation, reaction, and subtle testing. The family introduces scenarios designed to provoke truthful responses or reveal hidden behavior. Questions are phrased carefully, actions are monitored, and reactions are cross-referenced against prior behavior. The responsible individual attempts to maintain control, but under continuous scrutiny, the precision of deception falters. Patterns that were once consistent now show cracks, revealing a degree of uncertainty and revealing the boundaries of manipulation that have been employed for so long. Environmental observations continue to play a key role. Objects that are altered or misplaced, doors that are unlocked, and devices that behave unusually are analyzed in context with behavioral patterns. Each anomaly is documented and cross-referenced to identify causal relationships. The accumulation of such observations builds a detailed framework of the responsible individual's behavior, revealing both intent and limitations. Patterns of manipulation, previously subtle, are now detectable and can be analyzed to anticipate future actions. Tension within the household rises as family members begin to recognize the emotional and psychological state of the responsible individual. Signs of stress, frustration, and urgency appear. Movements become more deliberate, yet less assured. Responses are slower, and efforts to conceal intent begin to falter. The household becomes a controlled environment for observation, where each minor detail contributes to a growing understanding of the individual's psychological strategies and vulnerabilities. The responsible individual's attempts at concealment generate additional indicators of intent. Avoidance behaviors, small lies, and evasions are cross-referenced with observed patterns. The family begins to see consistency in inconsistencies, revealing methods of deception designed to manipulate perception, maintain control, and obscure intent. The psychological pressure of scrutiny, combined with accumulated awareness, gradually limits the ability to maintain a coherent facade. Subtle confrontations continue, with each question or test providing additional data. Behavioral cues, environmental anomalies, and responses to observation form a comprehensive picture. Even minor errors or slips become significant, as they reveal gaps in the individual's strategy of concealment. Patterns of guilt, stress, and anticipation emerge as the responsible individual begins to recognize the inevitability of exposure. Each observed reaction adds to the growing understanding of psychological dynamics within the household. The family's analytical approach strengthens over time. Continuous observation, cross-referencing anomalies, and careful scrutiny of responses create a cumulative effect. Predictive insight emerges, allowing the family to anticipate behaviors and identify deviations from expected patterns. Environmental and behavioral evidence converge, revealing a web of manipulation and deception that had previously gone undetected. Awareness becomes increasingly precise, allowing even subtle indications of intent or guilt to be identified. Tension reaches a peak as the responsible individual experiences escalating psychological pressure. Attempts at concealment become more laborious, more strained, and less effective. The family observes these patterns, recognizing that manipulation requires control and that loss of control leaves traces. The accumulation of behavioral evidence, environmental anomalies, and indirect confrontations gradually constrains the individual, creating opportunities for more direct confrontation and eventual exposure. The interplay of observation, testing, and psychological pressure establishes a clear dynamic. Each interaction, movement, and decision by the responsible individual is now interpretable within the context of previously documented behavior. The household becomes a space where deception is increasingly difficult to maintain, and patterns of guilt, stress, and strategic response are evident. This ongoing escalation of psychological pressure prepares both the family and the environment for the next phase, where exposure, accountability, and resolution become possible. As the investigation and psychological scrutiny continue, subtle behavioral patterns emerge with increasing clarity. The responsible individual cannot maintain consistent deception under continuous observation. Actions intended to obscure intent now reveal inadvertent truths. Minor hesitations, fleeting expressions, and environmental cues provide insight into motives and strategies. The family, by maintaining meticulous observation and analysis, develops a coherent understanding of the individual's psychological state, increasing readiness for confrontation. By the conclusion of this extended period of psychological observation, the dynamics of guilt, stress, and manipulation are well documented. The responsible individual shows clear signs of constraint, pressure, and anticipation of exposure. The family has accumulated sufficient evidence through environmental observation, behavioral analysis, and strategic confrontation to identify consistent patterns of intent and deception. Awareness is at its peak, and preparation for direct confrontation, verification, and ultimate revelation is now complete.
The culmination of careful observation, documentation, and analysis begins to produce clarity. Every minor anomaly, every inconsistency, and every subtle reaction observed over time now points toward a specific individual within the household. Patterns of behavior, deviations from normal routines, environmental anomalies, and responses to questioning converge, revealing a coherent picture of intentional deception. The process of identification is not sudden, but the accumulation of evidence leaves no ambiguity. The responsible individual, once hidden among the family, is now distinguishable through repeated observation, patterns, and documented evidence. Each confirmed observation adds weight to the conclusion. Past events that were unexplained now gain context. Minor mistakes, hesitations, or inconsistencies that were once overlooked now form a trail leading directly to the individual responsible. Conversations previously dismissed as normal now reveal hidden intent when cross-referenced with prior behavior. Environmental clues, such as the positioning of objects, timing of actions, and unexplained disturbances, align with behavioral patterns. These combined indicators leave no room for doubt. The person responsible for manipulation and deception has been identified. The moment of realization within the family is gradual yet unmistakable. Patterns of trust and suspicion, careful observation, and corroborating evidence converge, allowing the family to see the truth clearly. The responsible individual, who has skillfully maintained a facade of normalcy, no longer obscures intent. Subtle signs of guilt, stress, and awareness of scrutiny have accumulated over time, revealing the underlying deception. Every interaction, action, and reaction now fits into a coherent framework of manipulation, confirming the individual's responsibility. Direct confrontation, when it occurs, is supported by the full context of observation and documentation. Questions are framed with clarity, and responses are analyzed for alignment with established patterns. The individual responsible is confronted with evidence gathered over time, behavioral inconsistencies, environmental anomalies, observed evasions, and documented patterns of manipulation. The accumulation of evidence leaves the individual unable to maintain a credible facade. The family, having patiently observed and recorded every relevant detail, now has the basis to verify accountability. The revelation is reinforced by cross-referencing multiple sources of evidence. Actions are compared with prior patterns, and inconsistencies are noted. Communication, behavior, and environmental cues collectively demonstrate the deliberate nature of the deception. The responsible individual strategies, once effective at concealment, are now fully exposed. Patterns that were previously subtle now reveal intent clearly, confirming the individual's identity. Recognition of this pattern allows the family to distinguish between coincidence and deliberate action, leaving no uncertainty regarding responsibility. The individual's psychological response to exposure becomes apparent. Hesitation, avoidance, and subtle attempts at deflection indicate awareness of the inevitability of accountability. These behaviors, when analyzed in the context of prior observations, reinforce the identification of the responsible individual. The combination of accumulated evidence and observed responses eliminates ambiguity. The family is able to recognize the pattern of manipulation that has persisted over time, and the individual responsible can no longer hide behind normal appearances. The process of revelation establishes clarity not only regarding identity, but also regarding methods, motives, and opportunities. Each previously unexplained action or anomaly now has context in a consistent framework. Environmental disturbances, behavioral deviations, and inconsistencies all align with the actions of the identified individual. This systematic identification confirms the person responsible and provides a basis for understanding the full scope of their influence, manipulation, and deception within the household. As the family internalizes the revelation, tension remains high. Awareness of betrayal, combined with recognition of patterns, creates an environment of vigilance. The responsible individual is constrained by the accumulated knowledge and observation, unable to manipulate further without detection. Patterns of deception are no longer hidden. They are clearly documented and understood. This clarity provides the family with the capacity to act decisively, respond appropriately, and address the consequences of prolonged manipulation. The identification of the responsible individual is accompanied by a sense of inevitability. Patterns that were once invisible are now obvious, and previous actions are reinterpreted in light of confirmed responsibility. The household recognizes that deception, while prolonged and subtle, has left consistent traces. By systematically documenting and analyzing behavior, environmental cues, and interactions, the family achieves a complete understanding of the individual's role in ongoing manipulation. Exposure is no longer a possibility, it is a certainty, supported by evidence and observation. The revelation also establishes a foundation for accountability. The family now possesses the knowledge, evidence, and understanding necessary to confront the individual, verify actions, and implement measures to prevent further manipulation. Every detail previously recorded contributes to a coherent narrative, allowing the family to differentiate between unintentional errors and deliberate deception. The identification of the responsible individual provides the clarity necessary to proceed with resolution, confrontation, and correction. By the conclusion of this phase, the responsible individual is fully identified. The cumulative observations, behavioral analyses, environmental evidence, and documented inconsistencies provide an indisputable record of manipulation. The family is aware of patterns, motives, and methods, and the responsible individual can no longer conceal intent. The groundwork is established for subsequent actions, whether they involve accountability, corrective measures, or resolution of conflict within the household. The stage is now set for addressing consequences, confronting the individual and ensuring that patterns of manipulation are recognized and terminated.
With the responsible individual clearly identified, the family shifts focus from observation to direct action. The patterns of deception, manipulation, and concealment that have been meticulously documented now serve as a foundation for confronting the individual. The household, previously dominated by uncertainty and vigilance, becomes a controlled environment where the responsible individual is unable to act without observation. Each step, movement, and response is now visible, anticipated, and evaluated in context with prior evidence. Confrontation begins with clarity and preparation. Questions are framed precisely, actions are observed, and deviations from previously documented patterns are noted immediately. The responsible individual is presented with evidence in a systematic manner, including inconsistencies, behavioral anomalies, environmental disturbances, and recorded incidents of manipulation. The presentation of evidence is comprehensive, leaving no opportunity for evasion or denial. Each piece of documentation reinforces the conclusion that the individual has engaged in deliberate acts of deception. As the confrontation progresses, the responsible individual exhibits predictable psychological responses. Hesitation, defensiveness, attempts to justify actions, and subtle evasions are observed and compared with prior behaviors. These responses further confirm responsibility, as each aligns with previously identified patterns of manipulation and concealment. The household, previously dominated by uncertainty and vigilance, becomes a controlled environment where the responsible individual is unable to act without observation. Each step, movement, and response is now visible, anticipated, and evaluated in context with prior evidence. Confrontation begins with clarity and preparation. Questions are framed precisely, actions are observed, and deviations from previously documented patterns are noted immediately. The responsible individual is presented with evidence in a systematic manner, including inconsistencies, behavioral anomalies, environmental disturbances, and recorded incidents of manipulation. The presentation of evidence is comprehensive, leaving no opportunity for evasion or denial. Each piece of documentation reinforces the conclusion that the individual has engaged in deliberate acts of deception. As the confrontation progresses, the responsible individual exhibits predictable psychological responses. Hesitation, defensiveness, attempts to justify actions, and subtle evasions are observed and compared with prior behaviors. These responses further confirm responsibility, as each aligns with previously identified patterns of manipulation and concealment. The household, relying on accumulated knowledge and observation, maintains a steady approach, ensuring that the confrontation remains focused on verification of facts rather than emotional escalation. Environmental factors contribute to the clarity of the confrontation. The household, having been carefully observed for patterns of manipulation, provides context for the presentation of evidence. Items that were altered, misplaced, or manipulated are directly referenced. Timelines of actions and behaviors are reconstructed, demonstrating deliberate intent. Patterns of communication, both spoken and unspoken, are highlighted to show inconsistencies and deliberate concealment. The responsible individual is unable to dispute these documented observations, as they are presented in a logical and continuous sequence that demonstrates clear intent. Throughout the confrontation, the family observes and records responses meticulously. Each statement, gesture, or hesitation is interpreted in the context of established behavioral patterns. Attempts to deflection, justification, or manipulation are noted and compared with prior evidence. The individual's ability to control perception diminishes as the consistency and comprehensiveness of documentation becomes apparent. The household dynamic shifts, with awareness and preparedness, creating an environment where deception cannot be maintained. The confrontation escalates as accumulated evidence, eliminates ambiguity. Every observed inconsistency, behavioral deviation, and environmental anomaly is connected to the individual's actions. The person responsible is fully exposed, unable to maintain the previous facade of normalcy. Each response to questioning is analyzed in real time, and any attempt to evade responsibility is countered with documented evidence. This systematic approach ensures that accountability is unavoidable. Patterns of manipulation and concealment are addressed directly. Each previously unexplained action is reconstructed and explained in context. Behavioral patterns, environmental observations, and documented incidents are presented in a continuous, logical sequence. The responsible individual is required to respond to these observations, and attempts at justification are evaluated against established evidence. The systematic approach ensures that deception cannot continue and that recognition of responsibility is both clear and verifiable. The psychological effect on the responsible individual becomes evident. Stress, discomfort, and awareness of exposure are visible in actions and responses. Hesitation, defensive gestures, and subtle attempts to redirect attention are noted. These behaviors, when compared to documented patterns, confirm the intentional nature of prior manipulation. The accumulation of evidence and structured confrontation leaves no room for denial, establishing the individual's accountability. The family's approach remains consistent and focused. Direct observation, documentation, and cross-referencing of behaviors ensure that the confrontation is based on facts rather than emotion. Each response by the responsible individual is assessed in relation to prior evidence, providing a clear and continuous understanding of intent, actions, and consequences. This methodical approach prevents misinterpretation and reinforces the validity of conclusions. By the conclusion of the confrontation, the responsible individual is fully captured in terms of accountability. Patterns of manipulation, deception, and concealment have been clearly documented and verified through observation and direct interaction. The household has achieved clarity, with the responsible individual no longer able to obscure intent, evade responsibility, or manipulate perception. The accumulated evidence and systematic confrontation ensures that the truth is fully recognized. The final outcome establishes a foundation for resolution and corrective action. The individual responsible is identified, accountable, and constrained by documented evidence. Patterns of deception have been exposed, behaviors have been analyzed and verified, and the household is now fully aware of the actions that have occurred. The confrontation achieves both recognition of responsibility and a clear framework for addressing consequences, ensuring that manipulation and deception cannot continue undetected. With accountability established, the family is prepared to implement measures to prevent recurrence. The individual responsible is constrained by observation and documentation, and future actions are guided by awareness of previously established patterns. The culmination of investigation, observation, psychological analysis, and confrontation ensures that the responsible individual is both exposed and understood, creating a basis for long-term resolution and restoration of trust within the household.
With the responsible individual identified and held accountable, the household begins a period of observation and reflection. The immediate tension caused by uncertainty and hidden manipulation begins to ease, but awareness remains heightened. Family members remain vigilant, using the knowledge gained through prolonged investigation and confrontation to monitor behavior, ensure consistency, and verify that patterns of deception do not reemerge. The environment gradually transitions from suspicion and unease to cautious stability, with lessons learned from the exposure of the responsible individual shaping daily interactions. The family reviews the events leading up to the revelation, analyzing how subtle actions, behavioral patterns, and environmental anomalies combined to conceal intent. Each previously unexplained incident is reinterpreted in light of documented evidence, providing clarity and insight. Observations recorded during the investigation serve not only as proof of responsibility, but also as a guide for understanding dynamics within the household. Reflection allows family members to recognize vulnerabilities, develop strategies for future vigilance, and strengthen trust where it remains intact. Communication becomes more deliberate and transparent. Conversations that were previously cautious and scrutinized now focus on rebuilding trust and understanding. The family implements practices for accountability and clarity, ensuring that routines, interactions, and responsibilities are openly shared and observable. Awareness of prior manipulation informs these practices, guiding the household toward a framework of transparency that prevents recurrence of similar deception. The responsible individual, constrained by exposure and documentation, adjusts behavior to align with the newfound awareness within the household. Patterns of concealment, avoidance, or manipulation are no longer effective under continued observation and clear expectations. Accountability remains active, and mechanisms established during confrontation, such as documentation of actions and structured verification of behavior, serve as ongoing deterrents to further deception. Reflection extends to the emotional and psychological impact of prolonged manipulation. Family members acknowledge the stress, uncertainty, and tension experienced during the period of investigation and confrontation. These experiences inform a cautious approach to trust, relationships, and household dynamics. The lessons learned provide insight into identifying subtle patterns of behavior, recognizing early signs of deception, and responding effectively to anomalies in the future. Awareness, observation, and documentation become integral tools for maintaining stability. Daily routines gradually resume normalcy, but with enhanced mindfulness. Actions, movements, and communications are monitored with subtle vigilance, ensuring that patterns of manipulation do not reemerge. The household maintains a balance between normal life and the careful application of lessons learned, allowing for both stability and preparedness. Family members interact with increased awareness, applying knowledge of behavioral patterns, environmental cues, and previous anomalies to prevent recurrence of deception. The resolution process also involves assessing the methods of concealment and manipulation previously employed by the responsible individual. Understanding the strategies, timing, and intent of the responsible individual allows the family to anticipate potential vulnerabilities and establish preventative measures. Documentation of past events serves as a reference for evaluating future actions, enabling proactive responses to irregularities and reinforcing mechanisms of accountability within the household. Trust within the household is gradually restored. While caution remains, transparency, observation, and verification foster an environment in which manipulation cannot easily take hold. The responsible individual's previous influence is mitigated by established structures of accountability, awareness, and vigilance. The household becomes more resilient, able to recognize and address anomalies before they escalate into patterns of concealment or deception. Reflection on the extended process, from initial suspicion through observation, investigation, confrontation, and resolution, provides insight into the dynamics of hidden manipulation. Family members recognize the importance of careful attention, meticulous documentation, and systematic observation. Patterns that were once invisible now serve as lessons in vigilance, highlighting the role of perception, analysis, and structured response in maintaining household integrity. The aftermath also allows for emotional and psychological recalibration. Family members process the stress of prolonged uncertainty, reconcile with the realization of hidden manipulation, and integrate lessons learned into ongoing relationships. The environment gradually stabilizes, with vigilance becoming routine and awareness serving as a protective mechanism rather than a source of constant tension. The household achieves a state of cautious equilibrium, informed by experience and strengthened by knowledge. Ultimately, the resolution establishes long-term frameworks for transparency, accountability, and stability. The responsible individual, constrained by observation and awareness, operates under clear expectations. Patterns of manipulation are no longer sustainable, and the household maintains a balance between normalcy and vigilance. Lessons from the investigation and confrontation provide ongoing guidance, ensuring that any future anomalies are detected early and addressed effectively. By the conclusion of this period, the household has transitioned from uncertainty and tension to a state of informed stability. Knowledge, documentation, and vigilance provide a foundation for trust, accountability, and resilience. The responsible individual has been fully exposed, patterns of deception have been disrupted, and the family is equipped to maintain clarity and prevent recurrence. The experience, while challenging, results in strengthened awareness, restored order, and a controlled environment in which manipulation cannot thrive.